I am not an NFL scout. I'm a guy that watches college football. I'm also a guy that likes watching the NFL. But, you know, in determining the ability of these players to make a decision and their viability at the next level, again, I only listen to what is out there from credible sources. But when I see Tommy Eichenberg and when I see Ronnie Hickman, and I know they play different positions, of course, but considering how well Tommy Eichenberg played this year, and Ronnie Hickman had a fine season, but Eichenberg just was a dominant player for much of the season. I guess I was a bit surprised to hear Eichenberg's coming back, Hickman's leaving for the NFL draft.
To me, in that one, I think those are decisions that were probably made ahead of time. I mean, Ronnie Hickman announced, I think, the week of the Michigan game that this was going to be his last season. So he'd obviously been thinking of that for a while. It was really good 2 years ago. Was the leading tackler for the Buckeyes, which says more about the defense than it probably does about Hickman's play, and that's no slight on him. This past year, I thought he was good, not great. I didn't think he was as good as 2 years ago. Um, I think he probably hurt himself a little bit in terms of the draft, but if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. With Eichenberg, I think it's more of a case of he really only has one good season on film. Last year was getting his feet wet longer than I think people expected. And it really wasn't until the Rose Bowl, really the second half of the Rose Bowl, where you started to see the Tommy Eichenberg that we saw this season. So I think in his mind, he can help his draft stock by coming back and putting back-to-back really productive years. It'll be the second year under Jim Knowles, who is also his linebackers coach. I think he sees an opportunity there, at least, to help himself. And like with CJ Stroud, look, these guys aren't necessarily hurting anymore for money if they so choose to sign NIL deals. They can make this decision more comfortably than they could in the past. I think previously you saw a lot of guys that needed to get to the league to get money, maybe make the decision to declare earlier than they should have. And they also obviously have the NFL evaluations that come back on their play. They've done that differently now, where it's basically go to the draft or come back is kind of what they're told. So instead of being round by round, which is what it used to project. So, we don't get necessarily the information on them, but I would imagine Tommy Eichenberg probably didn't hear exactly what he wanted to. Whereas Ronnie Hickman, like I said, I think his mind was made up pretty far in advance that this was going to be his last year in college football.